The truth is, in real practice, no one's going to select a random sample nowadays using a random number table. Instead, it's more likely that they're going to use some kind of technology. So I want to show you how to use technology to be able to do this. So the same problem. I'm going to first show you the TI graphing calculator. The graphing calculator has a random number feature that we can use in order to generate random numbers. And on your calculator, you will find that under this math button. So if you go to math, and then if you go over with the arrows to highlight PROB, that's for probability. If you have an older calculator, it will just say PRB. Now, so if you look at this list of items under this menu, number one is RAND. That has to do with random numbers. If you select that option, what the calculator will do is it will give you a random number between -1 and +1, but it's this long, nasty decimal. So that's not generally going to be very useful to us. Instead, you should have like option number 5 here, which says RANDINT. That stands for random integers. So we can use that command in order to find random integers, which is what we want to do. If you have a newer calculator, like my calculator is a TI-84 plus CE, you will also have this command number 8, which is random integer, no repeats. So with this, the only difference between number 8 and number 5 is that with number 5, you might have repetitions, so you could get the same number twice. If you do the no repeats, you will not get repeats. So again, if you have an older calculator and you're using number 5, if you do get a repeat, you'll just skip it the second time. Now, the way this command is going to work, it's going to look like this. I'm going to use RANDINT, and I'm not going to use the no repeats at first, but the no repeat command works the exact same way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have random integer. We're going to have a lower limit, which means the smallest number that we're going to generate, comma, then an upper limit, which is the largest number. So like in our case, it's going to be RANDINT. Our smallest number would be 1, and our largest number would be 45. So this is how the command's going to look. Now, depending on the age of your calculator, you may have to actually type this in like this. So you'll choose the random integer command, and then you'll put 1, 45, close parenthesis if you have an older calculator. Now, if you have a newer calculator like mine, when I select that random integer command, it gives me this window where I enter the lower limit and the upper limit. So again, my lower limit's going to be 1, my upper limit's going to be 45 for this problem. I'm going to skip this in command right here for the moment, and I'm going to just skip to paste. So when I say paste, it gives me this command, which again would be the exact same way that it looks if you have an older calculator. So when I hit enter, it gives me the first of my 6 numbers, which in this case is 43. So that would be George W. Bush would be the first member of my sample. When I hit enter again, it gives me number 7. So that would be Andrew Jackson, would be the second individual in my sample. Hit enter again, number 36. So that's LBJ. Hit enter again, number 44. So that would be Barack Obama. Hit enter again, that would be number 11, which would be Polk. And hit enter again, number 4. So that would be Madison. So those would be my 6 presidents that would be included in my sample. Now, again, in my case, I did not get any repeats, but if I were to get a repeat, I just have to skip it the second time. Okay, so like, for example, if I would have gotten number 44 twice, well, Barack Obama can't be in my sample twice, so I would just include him once and skip. Now, the truth is, the calculator has this random number feature, but the calculator doesn't really generate these numbers randomly. Instead, what's happening is there is a random number table similar to this stored inside the calculator. So if we were to have all opened our calculators out of a package, if they were all brand new calculators and used them for the first time, we would all get the exact same random numbers because they're really in this random number order that's in there in the table. So to try to do the same kind of effect as, I circled my table and pointed so I didn't always start at the same spot, we can do the same kind of thing with the calculator. We can use what's called a seed value. Okay, so we can use a seed value. If you and I are all using TI calculators, and if we all use the same seed value, then we'll all get the same numbers. So how do you go about choosing a seed value? Well, a seed value can be any number, basically. To try to make it a little more random, I usually try to involve a clock or something like that. So if I look at the clock on my computer right now, the time is 9:18. So I'm going to use 9:18 as my seed value. So here's how I do that. So I'm going to type 9:18. And then this button right here above the on button is the store button. I'm going to press that. And then I'm going to go to math and probability, and I'm going to choose option number 1, rand. So I type in my seed value, hit the store button, and then go get that rand command, which was under math and probability. When I hit enter, it's just going to repeat what my seed value is. So what I have done with that seed value again is like it's selected the position in the random number table in the calculator for me to start. Now, if you entered the same seed value as me, you're going to get the same random numbers as me. So I typed in 9:18, my seed value, hit the store button, which is, again, the button right above the on button, and then go back to math, use the arrows to go to probability, and select number 1, rand. And then you have to hit enter. So now I am ready to select my sample. So now again, if I do like I showed you before, I'm going to go to math and probability, and I'm going to use number 5 again, random integer. I'm selecting individuals from 1 to 45. So I'm just going to say paste. Again, if you have an older calculator, you'll have to actually type that in like it looks right now on my screen. When I hit enter, number 20 would be the first member. So that would be Garfield. Then number 33, so that would be Truman. Then number 40, so that would be Reagan. Then number 34, that would be Eisenhower. Number 18, that would be Grant. And number 44, so that would be Obama. So those would be my 6 individuals that would be in my sample if I did it this way. Again, in this case, I didn't get any repeats, so I didn't have to worry about skipping anything. Now, I do want to show you a couple of other things that you can use or not use. You can do it like I just did. If I go to math and probability again, if you have again, a newer calculator, 1 to 45, this value right here for n, I can choose how many numbers I want the calculator to select, and it'll pick them all at once for me so I don't have to keep hitting enter. So like if I wanted 6, I can type 6 there by n, and when I say paste and hit enter, it will pick the 6. So 23, 42, 36, 43, 37, and 7, those would be the individuals that are making up my sample. I would recommend, if your sample size needs to be 6, don't use 6 for n, because it's possible that you could get repeats. You would probably want to use a bigger number, like maybe 10, and then just pick the first 6 that aren't repeats. Now, if you have this other command on your calculator, if you have the random integer no repeats, it works the same way. So I could do 1 to 45, and I can choose 6 here because it's not going to have repeats. And if I paste and hit enter, it gives me these 6. So 45, so Trump, 13, Fillmore, 40, Reagan, 8, Van Buren, 44, Obama, and 41, the first Bush, George H.W. Bush, would be my 6 presidents that make up my sample. So I think you should be able to handle that. I also, for the first time, want to show you StatCrunch. So we can also use StatCrunch in order to find our sample. So in MyMathLab, if you look over here to the left, we have an option for StatCrunch. So we can go into StatCrunch using this method. So I could go to StatCrunch. And again, StatCrunch is a statistical package that we'll be using throughout this semester. Now, when I select that StatCrunch option, I get this list of things that I could do. What I really want to do usually is data sets from our textbook. So I'm going to select that. Now, what this does, we're going to have data sets as we go into problems. Later on, like when we get into chapter 2 and 3, we'll have data sets. And so those data sets are saved so that we don't have to type them in, and we can just open them up in StatCrunch. So it's a time saver. Now, there aren't any data sets in chapter 1. So if you look here, this is talking about the textbook data sets. Well, there's not a chapter 1 here, again, because there aren't any data sets in chapter 1. But what I need to do is just get into StatCrunch. I don't really care what data is showing or anything like that. I just need in the program. So I'm going to select chapter 2, and I'm just going to pick one of the problems. So I'll just pick the first problem there to open up in StatCrunch. Now, again, I don't really care about what data is there. I'm just trying to get into StatCrunch so that I can show you how to generate random numbers. Now, I also want to show you, before I get too far into this, that in the textbook, right before the exercise sets in the textbook. So if you look at section 1.3 and you go to the exercise sets, right before the exercise sets, there is a feature called Technology Step-by-Steps. And so what that feature is it gives you basic instructions on how to use the TI calculator, how to use StatCrunch, how to use Excel, and how to use another statistical program called Minitab to do the things that are in that particular section. So like, for example, there are instructions on how to use the calculator, how you would enter to find a random sample using the calculator. And there's instructions on how to use StatCrunch to find a random sample using StatCrunch. So you can always look there if you forget the steps that I'm showing you. So anyway, if I want to find some random numbers in StatCrunch, and again, ignore this DRRID and all of that stuff. That doesn't mean anything for our problem. That's just a data set that I happen to open. Anyway, in StatCrunch, if I want to generate random numbers, I'm going to start by going to data, and I'm just going to point at data, like you can see here. And then I'm going to go to simulate. So I go to simulate. Now, from simulate, I'm going to choose discrete uniform, and that gives me this window. So this is going to work sort of like the calculator. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tell StatCrunch where I want to put the random numbers that I'm going to generate. So how many rows do I want to use and how many columns do I want to use? Well, because we're wanting to choose 6 individuals, I'm either going to use 6 rows or a few more than 6 rows. And I would recommend using a few more than 6 rows, because if you use 6 and you get a duplicate, then you're going to have to repeat in order to get additional ones so that you have more than 6. So I'm going to use 10 rows. And again, what that means is it's going to put random numbers in 10 different rows in this spreadsheet. I'm only going to use 1 column. So 10 rows in 1 column. So it's going to put random numbers down 1 column. I can tell StatCrunch what the minimum number needs to be. So if the smallest value is going to be 1 and the largest value is going to be 45. And then I'm just going to say compute. When I say compute, it puts 10 random numbers down this column, which is discrete uniform random numbers. So the first 6 non-repeats would be the 6 individuals that would make up my sample. So number 18, number 28, number 17, number 6, number 29, and number 33, I should say, those 6 presidents would make up my sample. There weren't any repeats in that, but there could be repeats. So we have an assortment of ways we can go about achieving the selection of a simple random sample. We can use the random number table, we can use the calculator to generate our random numbers, or we can use StatCrunch to generate our random numbers. And then there's an abundance. We could also use Excel, we could also use Minitab. There's random number generators on the internet that we could find. So there's a lot of options. Then that completes section 1.3 on how we can go about obtaining simple random samples.